Hello, my name is Darcy Sullivan. I am the president of Propel Marketing and Design. We are a boutique marketing and design firm located in Boynton Beach, Florida. We also offer for small businesses and entrepreneurs workshops both online and in person covering topics of internet marketing, social media, WordPress, and other things relevant to small businesses that are just getting started with limited budgets. So, in this presentation, we're going to go over why content marketing and WordPress are a perfect pair, simple steps to creating a content marketing plan, tips and tools for creating content without giving yourself a headache, how to integrate content marketing with your WordPress website, what makes content share-worthy, and then we'll take questions at the end. So, here's our power couple. We have content marketing, and can I get a quick show of hands? Has anybody in this audience not heard of the term content marketing before? Is that new for anyone? It's a buzzword that's been around a little bit for a while. Content marketing is a marketing technique of creating and distributing relevant and valuable content with the goal to attract, acquire, and engage a clearly defined audience with the objective of driving profitable customer actions. And I think we all here know about WordPress. WordPress is one of the top website development platforms to deliver the content you've put together. So thanks to our friends at Google, over the past couple of years, there's been a bit of a shift from technical SEO being as important as content marketing. And you'll see kind of the sweet spot now is larger focus on content marketing combined with social media and then the traditional technical SEO. Now, not all content is created equal. You know, it's kind of the garbage in, garbage out concept. You have to make sure that what you're putting together and distributing really is of high value. And creating valuable content that's SEO friendly, that you are able to share through social media, gives you link building, higher rankings, more followers, more readers, more influence, and in turn, what we all want, more sales. Creating content isn't enough. When you start out and you've got your content created, then you need to optimize it. You have to optimize it for search engines. You also have to optimize it for devices, depending on keeping in mind that some people are going to be on mobile and tablet as well as PCs. Then you want to make sure that you're making your content socially shareable, which we'll get to more later. And then on top of that, you also want to promote it in other directions. So now some strategy for creating an easy plan. First, you want to start off and really define your buyer persona. This is just really simple, a quick outline of your ideal client or your current client base. An example that I'm going to give here is, let's just say you're a small WordPress website building company. Your ideal client would be somebody who's just getting started in a business that needs a WordPress website and hopefully is going to keep you on long term for updates and other things past the initial website development. So what you would do is come up with a couple hot topics. These are easily based around maybe the top 3 to 5 questions that you're constantly getting asked. Then you want to create a content plan around these. An example could be a quick blog post on how to back up your WordPress website. And I'm going to put in a couple quotes here that are going to build up to something to come, but I really love the way that this is worded. When building a community, and they're speaking of social media, start simple. Solve one problem and go from there. And then there's nothing that's really original anymore. Grab something relevant to your audience and put your own spin on it. When you're putting together your content marketing plan, you need to make sure that you have really clearly defined objectives. These could be brand awareness, lead generation, creating website traffic, positioning yourself as an industry leader, acquiring new sales, or connecting with your current audience or a new audience, search engine optimization, and etc. So here are 3 examples that I put together. How and why to run updates on your WordPress website, how to back up your WordPress website, 10 things to consider when evaluating a website makeover. So the bottom one could be for driving traffic to your website and gaining new leads. Anyone who's interested or coming to your website, that if you're a web developer, having information on there about things to consider while evaluating a website makeover is going to kind of put you above another company who just has, here's our list of services, this is what we do. It's important to really be yourself. And I put this up here because I think what a lot of people do is they look directly at what their competition is doing, and then they just do that. And you're never going to be able to be a leader in your industry or be the top dog if you're just copying somebody else. And the same goes for the content that you're pushing out about your company or to try to acquire new sales. You want it to truly reflect your personality, because a client is going to choose to do business with you because of the personality that you bring forward in the content that you're pushing out. And then, of course, we want to do a social push. So once again, you develop your hot topics. What are you commonly asked? Another great thing about putting this out there is it's already out there. If you know that your clients or potential clients are always going to ask you these 3 questions, it's much easier to say, oh, that's such a common question. We have all of that information available on our website. It puts you ahead, stating that you already are in their head, knowing what their concerns or their questions might be. You want to, again, make sure that you're optimizing this information as you put it together for social media and also for devices. You want to push them out socially, and then you also want to promote your content in other ways. This could be through your email blast, a press release if it's appropriate, and paid advertising. Here are some tips for actually getting it done. Put it on your calendar. Leverage other people's content. You can write a blog post, you can pull somebody's information, and this goes back to the previous slides and the previous quotes. For example, I pulled somebody's infographic that was very helpful on the topic of how to rate high on Google, because, right, if you're a web designer, the first question after can you design a website for me is that your client's going to have is, well, how are you going to get me, or how can I get myself to be #1 in Google? So anticipating what your client's needs and what their questions are, if you go ahead and work around content that's already developed, it's not taking away from the fact that you didn't spend hours and hours developing the content yourself, as long as you're giving them credit for the information that they've provided, whether it be an infographic or a YouTube video. But if you have to give your own spin and your own insight into what they have already said or put together. Another item that you could do if you're short on time or short on energy is to do a roundup. I'm sure we've all seen these, of a weekly or monthly roundup of really helpful articles that other people have done. Then another tip that I have is to really leverage your outside resources. This could be if you did a podcast or a webinar, to have somebody transcribe it. If proofreading isn't your thing, then you can hire a proofreader through Elance. And now we're going to go over types of content and tips and tools for that content. So there are so many types of different content that you can push out. It goes far and far beyond the whole concept of a blog post, right? You can do infographics, articles, podcasts, FAQ, consultations, registrations for classes, guides, data sheets, white papers, case studies, slide share presentations, how to share your customer stories, blog posts, of course. Then there's always the beloved gated material. Gated material can be any of these items above. We can go back and use the example that we did before on the 10 items to consider when or 10 items to think about when you're considering a website redesign. That, if you're a web designer, could be a really good topic to have on your website but people can only get to it through a gated page. The gated page means that they're going to have to provide you their information. So now you've turned your content into really a lead generation machine for you, because you can ask them for, their name, their email address, information about their company, whatever you want in order for them to gain that gated material. Another thing to consider is video and audio. It really helps put a voice behind your brand. And something really interesting happens as you guys are sitting here hearing me speak, or if you've seen another presentation. If you later receive an email from that person, you're going to read it through in their voice, if you can remember them, versus your own voice. So it goes way beyond just putting an initial voice in their head. It really actually puts the voice in their head. And I like this matrix. Once again, all of these are available, all this information is available on the website for download, but it kind of tells you at what stage and at what connection you should use what type of content marketing to achieve the goals that you're after. This quote I love, because when you go to put out content marketing, just because people say video and audio are the next big thing, if you don't feel comfortable standing in front of people, standing in front of a camera or holding a microphone, don't do it. People are going to be able to tell, and it's not going to be you putting your best foot forward. If you don't feel comfortable writing, don't do it. Pick another form of content marketing that's going to work best for you. So be responsible for the energy that you bring forward, because if you are pushing out a weekly newsletter and you hate doing it and you're just doing it because somebody somewhere told you should do it, your clients and the people opening it and reading it are going to be able to tell. When you're putting together your content marketing plan and when you start pushing out content, it's really good to find your identity, and it can be by starting small. It could be by committing to say that you're going to write one blog post a month, or a week or a month. Then you could take this and push it out through your email list if you have one. And I always like to think, instead of thinking that I'm writing for everyone that's on the email list, that I pick one person, and usually it's that client. I'm sure you all have that client that's so technically challenged that I just focus on that person, and that's who I write to when I'm writing. So that way I don't feel like I have to solve everyone's problem with this. I just focus on one person, and it just makes the writing process a little bit easier. And whatever you do, don't write for SEO, write for your clients or your potential clients that you're trying to acquire, your audience. And examples of this, I personally do the weekly newsletter, which I mentioned earlier, and I push out either a blog post or an upcoming event, and I use WordPress paired with MailChimp because they integrate really nicely into each other. If you decided that you wanted to do a type of infographic, there are many places where you can go and find items that are pre-done, pre-templated for you, so you don't have to start from scratch. One of the most overlooked pieces of equipment in your arsenal is PowerPoint. And I can't say that enough. PowerPoint is so great because if you're not the best designer, you can go in and you can set up your PowerPoint page to, let's just say, whatever your Facebook cover needs to be, that size, or your blog post, if your blog post has a title area that you want to create an image for. Any images, you can set them up in PowerPoint. You can put text over it. You can do things to really grab attention without having to have Photoshop or an expensive software. You can also save out of PowerPoint in JPEGs, PDFs, other formats that are really great. So you could even lay out an ebook if you wanted to in PowerPoint. And HubSpot has some really great downloadable pre-formatted infographics. They're under their marketing section. marketing library, I believe it's called. And all you have to do is type in or change out your content, your text, and some images, and save it out as a JPEG. Video. Once again, we all know video is growing bigger and bigger. And here are some ways that you can do video with ease. One is to use your phone, and I think we all saw this with the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Another is to use your camera or the built-in computer features that your computer already has. I have started to use Camtasia, and I really like it. They have a 30-day trial, and then it goes up to, I believe, around $300. What I like about it is you can do screen captures if you're walking through a process, or you can record a PowerPoint presentation, and it makes it just really easy to have a video and content without having to stand in front of a camera. Email marketing. Obviously, all of these also integrate very nicely into WordPress. We have MailChimp, which I love, Aweber, and Constant Contact. For podcast plugins, here's a list. I haven't actually used any of these, but I did want to make sure that I covered pretty much everything, so I did include information about podcasts in here. Doing images when you're not that creative. I know that about half the people here, if not more than that, are really good graphic designers, and about the other half really struggle with it. So I did want to include this information in here. PicMonkey, Canva, again, my favorite, the PowerPoint. GraphicRiver.net has some really great templates if you need any. And again, if you want to outsource stuff, you can always use a service like Elance or Fiverr. When you're putting out your content, you want to make sure that you're not duplicating it. Instead, you want to repurpose it. So you can take your piece of content, whether it's a blog post, we'll just use that as an example. Again, you could take part of it, rework it a little bit, send that out through your newsletter, send that out through social media, use it in different ways without having to really go back and recreate a whole new piece of content. Once again, we want to make sure that your content is responsive. This goes for your website, this goes for your email blast, and if you're sending stuff out socially, you want to check and make sure that it still looks good on phones and tablets. Now, integrating content marketing into WordPress. We'll start with SEO. And SEO is really about identifying keywords. Content marketing is about what customers need and then including the keywords. SEO plugins that are really good for this. The number one recommended, and I think it's already been mentioned a couple times at this event, is the WordPress SEO by Yoast. There are a couple others up there too if you want to try something else, but that one's usually it's their favorite. For tracking your website traffic, what happens, how are people finding your website, what are they doing when they get to your website. Everybody knows about Google Analytics, but Google Analytics can be overwhelming, especially to people who aren't that familiar with it. I really like Clicky, which you can get for free at clicky.com. It just makes reading your analytics and seeing what people are doing on your website really simple and really easy. There's a couple different plugins that you can use for Clicky that go into your WordPress site. Again, all are free. You can also do heat map plugins. I think everybody here is probably familiar with the term heat map. It shows you where eyes are drawn on your website, so you know where people are looking at what they're doing when they're on your website. And again, as this goes back to reconnecting with content, Are people coming, what pieces of content are people looking for on your website? Is it because you push the information out through Twitter that they're coming back to your website? Is it because you were at an event and connected with people? Is it because you sent out a press release about the topic? You can also schedule the content if you really are that organized to know what you're going to be putting together for your blog post. There are a lot of plugins that are free that you can use through WordPress to schedule and reorganize and collaborate on blogs and other pieces of content that you're going to push out through your WordPress site. And of course, our beloved social. You need to make sure that if you're adding content to your website, and most people would think of this as under their blog section, that it's really easy for people to share that information socially. Flares is a really good plugin that I like. There's also a number of different options. Social Media Feather, Slick Social Share buttons. Then you can also get ones directly related to social sites like Facebook, or if Pinterest is really big for your business. You want to make sure that you have links to your social sites on your website. I know that might sound kind of silly to say, but you would be surprised how many people have links on their website of Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest, and they go to facebook.com, twitter.com, so I just have to mention it. Also, vice versa, you want to make sure that your social media websites are driving traffic back to your website, so you want to make sure that you've really optimized that section of your social media social media sites, giving them, your hours of operation, your phone number, and link to your website. LeadPages. LeadPages is really nice, and they are not free, but LeadPages.net, not .com, helps beginners create some really nice lead generation forms. They're automatically responsive. One of the nice things about LeadPages is they've already determined which layout styles prove to work the best, and they'll already have them pre-formatted for you, so all you have to do is go in and type, free report, just type in, here's the information about my report, click to download. Also, we want to make it easy. So from a social media standpoint, we want to make sure that when we have content on our website, that we're pushing it out through our social avenues. You can do this through Hootsuite, Buffer App, TweetDeck, Social Sprout, Social Oomph. There's so many of them out there. I personally like Buffer App. It's really nice. It allows you to easily line up the content that you want to push out through your social sites, through Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Google+. It does not allow you to push out through Pinterest or Instagram, but I find it out of them. It's probably just the easiest, and it is free at its basic level. Next, you want to make sure that when people are on your website, they can find additional content that's relative to the information they're currently looking at. And this can be done by using plugins such as custom sidebars, YARP, better related posts, and then also sometimes premium themes already have this included. So if your home page is a normal static type page, at the bottom of it you could include, please check out information from our recent blog, and have links to those articles there. If you are blogging but not at a consistent time frame, one thing that I would suggest to you is, instead of calling the section a blog, you could also call it a resource section, so you didn't feel obligated or feel like if stuff had dates with it that it had to be pushed out on a weekly basis. Here are some additional good plugins for marketing, because I just wanted to make sure that I was able to give you guys as much as you could have, as much available in this time frame. And then we're going to get into really quickly why people share what they share on social media. So here are the 5 reasons people share content online. 1, to bring value and entertain content to others. 2, to define themselves to other people. To grow and enrich existing relationships. To find a sense of self-fulfillment and to get the word out. 7 things to remember when you're creating content that you want shared online. And I think this is very important. Number 1, sharing is how customers connect to each other, not to you. Your audience has to trust you to want to share your information. The simpler you make it, the better. It's great to have a sense of humor, to create a sense of urgency, and to engage after the fact. Email is still king. If Facebook goes down tomorrow and you had 25,000 people that you were connected to on Facebook, all of a sudden you're going to lose those connections. So you want to make sure that you really are grabbing people's email addresses when at all possible. Thank you. That's it. Again, the presentation can be found at this link. And there is all of my information. Anybody have any questions?
I noticed it says a version can be.
Uh-huh.
Will I find the same content?
Will I find the same content that you presented?
Yes, I just took out one slide and added an extra line or 2. It was a version that I loaded this morning, so it's very, very similar.
Great.
Thank you. Well, looks like we answered everything about content marketing.
The Camtasia, I assume that includes audio. You load that in after you edit it in.
Oh, it is fantastic. The audio loads as one line. The video loads as one line. And if you are using it, let's just say with PowerPoint, it already pre-marks each slide. So it really allows you, if you wanted to delete a slide, allows you to grab the video and audio, just highlight it, delete it. It's definitely, there's a 30-day free trial with it. I would definitely recommend checking it out.
What was that, Camtasia?
Camtasia.
I'm going to touch it all on the audio, since nobody can like that.
Oh, okay.
Camtasia. What other questions do we have about him? Thank you.
Just another comment on Camtasia. One of the things I find most beneficial on Camtasia is if you make a mistake, you can go back and erase it very easily. You don't have to redo the presentation. So for example, if you flub a line, a sentence, you just say up, save, and then you say the sentence again, and you go back and edit it down. It's really simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Besides Clicky, do you have any other favorite tools you have for the non-technical person?
Did I mention PowerPoint? What type of tool? Because all of these tools do very different things. What kind of tool are you interested in?
Tools possible for keyword analysis.
So for keyword analysis, if you're interested in trying to figure out how keywords rank, I would go to Google has some good tools for helping you decide what keywords you should use. Once again, you want to make sure that you're writing for your customer and your target audience, not for Google. The SEO by Yoast does a really good job of helping you figure out your title tags and your descriptions, making sure that you're using the keywords that you've associated with that post or that page.
Thank you.
I have a question about optimizing content, because you talked about that. So could you give us a couple of techniques for optimizing some of the content?
That's a really good question. And once again, tried to shove as much as possible into such a short time. So let's just take, for example, a blog post, right? So when you're thinking about optimizing that, you want to make sure that you're using your basic SEO, that you're using your keyword throughout, that you're using, depending on what your keyword or your topic is, that you're using it in your title, that you're using it throughout without trying to shove it in too awkwardly. If you have any images, you want to use your alt tags, which you can easily do in WordPress by clicking on the image and adding a description. You want to make sure that you are, when it comes to optimizing for devices, that you look at it on a phone, that you look at it on a tablet, that you look at it not only on a computer, but it helps to look at it on a couple different types of browsers, just to make sure that your message is still coming across and the layout's coming across the way it should.
Just one follow-up. So when we're looking at content on different devices specifically, because browsers you can just go ahead and you can download those and you can look at those, but you may not necessarily have access to all of those different devices. So is there some sort of like a test bed or some sort of a tool or a site that you could recommend where you can see content?
Well, the gentleman behind you, I think, really wants to answer that for you. And I'm going to add in, before he answers, that if you're on a WordPress site, and if you have your website up, and if you bring in the corner of the page, and you bring it to like right here, it's going to show you what it's going to look like on a tablet. And then if you bring it in and make it smaller to like this, it's going to show you what it's going to look like on a telephone. And take it away.
Also, and I'm not a developer either, so this is a good thing to help. But if you push F12 on your keyboard and you get the little developer tool pop up, this is for Google Chrome primarily, which is what my office uses. There's a little button in the right or left-hand corner, top left-hand corner, that looks like a little cell phone. If you click on that, it will actually give you a drop-down menu and you can change the aspect ratio of the screen, so that way it immediately fits into whatever size device. And it ranges anywhere from old iPhones to the newest iPads and tablets and so on. So it gives you a little bit of everything. So you can easily optimize it and see what it looks like.
If you want a good tool for testing your responsiveness on your site, we use Responsinator. So responsinator.com. It's super duper awesome.
Thank you.
Just a couple of follow-ups too for optimizing SEO content. You also want to get internal links, so wherever you've got words or phrases on your pages that can represent other content you have on your site, use those as links. And your URL is a really important place to put your keyword phrases. Also for looking up keywords, a couple other tools that are really good. They're paid though, whereas Google's free. It doesn't give you any real indication of competitiveness from an optimization perspective. It does from the paid side of things, but not from organic. So SEM Rush is a really good tool. Discovery, keyword discovery, although it's expensive. And word tracker is also, all three of those tools are going to be really good, and they'll give you some competitiveness value. So how hard or easy might it be? Just because Google says this is the most often searched for term, doesn't mean it's the one you always want to go after. And then someone told me today about a Chrome plugin too. I think it's called the User Agent. It's a Chrome extension. And that will get a little item in the corner that you can drop down and you can take Android, Chrome, all browsers just from the little drop down. And that was pretty cool. So I installed that yesterday.
He said three things very quickly.
Yeah.
Would you enunciate those three slow enough for us slow hearers to do the SEM, what?
So the first one is called SEM Rush, Search Engine Marketing Rush, SEMrush.com. They actually power a lot of other folks.
Were you saying rush?
Rush, yeah, like R-U-S-H, like you have to rush to do something. Like the band Rush, there you go, SEMrush.com. There's another one called Keyword Discovery. That's a little more expensive, but it's got a lot of different languages as well, and different industry types that you can use. And then a simple sort of interface one is called Word Tracker. And Word Tracker also, they're different platforms. I think they each have a 30-day or a 7-day free trial, so you can kind of mess around with it a bit. The thing I like about Word Tracker the most is they've got something called keyword questions. So you can go in, you can put in like your favorite keyword that you put WordPress in. And if you hit that little keyword questions, it'll say, what is WordPress? How do I do with WordPress? What can I do for this? And it gives you a whole bunch of questions that people are asking, which is great for getting new content ideas. And you publish the heck out of that. Yeah, also great stuff.
Thank you for allowing us to do that, Darcy. Any other hands, questions? Yes.
Just to follow up what Steve Scott has said, there are two things that I use. One is Market Samurai, and that does keyword analysis, and that's relatively cheap, about $100, one-time price. And then I use a web SEO. It's a single price, but they also have a cloud version as well.
Web SEO or CEO? CEO, isn't it?
Yeah, CEO.
So just to clarify, it was web CEO?
C is in cat.
Any other questions? Can we thank our speaker Darcy for her time and
Thank you.